Call the member Kevin Haig.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's my pleasure to take a call on this matter. Mr Speaker, sport serves a number of different functions. It entertains, it fosters a national or community spirit or identity, pride, and it inspires others to activity, particularly important in this country, or to endeavour of other sorts. So sport plays a pretty vital function in our society and in societies around the world. I believe I'm probably more of a cricket tragic than Chris Farfoy, and I wear the badge with some honour, sir. It's approaching the Merv Hughes moustache. I certainly in the moustache growing competition that's going on in the House at the moment, so I believe that I'm ahead by more than a head. When sport though is not a genuine competition, then all of those functions that it serves are compromised. And in modern sport, the twin scourges have been doping and match fixing. And so I am an inveterate follower of the Tour de France and professional road cycling. And it has become a sport that's very difficult to watch or to have any kind of stake in because of the level of doping in that sport. Because when we watch the Tour de France, we simply don't know whether people are competing fairly or not, and therefore whether the competition is real or not. And similarly, sir, actually some aspects of my great love cricket have also become difficult to watch for that same reason. We have seen Lou Vincent's revelations. We're watching the court case in the UK involving Chris Cairns. The IPL, I look at the IPL, I do not know whether I can trust what I see on my TV screen as to whether or not that is a fair competition. In the field of gambling, it's pretty much a truism that the house always wins. So whether it's a casino or pokie machines or a lottery or indeed sports betting, those who bet often enough and to sufficient level will pretty well always lose, unless the odds are stacked or unless the match or the sport on which they're betting is in some way fixed. And Mr Speaker, it's one of the reasons that I loathe sports betting, because it has introduced into sport the very strong incentive to skew the odds, to make it an unfair competition in order to maximise profitability from betting activity. And there are two kinds of harm that emerge from that. One is the harm from the skewed betting activity itself, whereby people are effectively defrauded by those who have procured the fixing of the match, because the odds on which they have betted do not reflect the actual probability of the events on which they have betted. And Mr Speaker, so that's one type of harm. The other type of harm is the attack that I've described, in fact, on the integrity of sport itself. And Mr Speaker, this is a bill that sets out to deal particularly with the second of those problems, to defend the integrity of sport. And the Green Party is proud to support that intention and will continue to support this bill. Second reading, sir, so I want to express my thanks to the officials who worked to support the Select Committee. Good advice from Sport New Zealand. Thanks submitters on the bill. Interesting to learn here in this debate, sir, that actually there was some debate over who would be submitting on that bill, and I look forward to hearing more about that matter. I was surprised by the small number of submissions. Perhaps that was no coincidence, sir. Maybe that's a a topical reference to the subject of this bill. The submissions that we did receive, Sir, and I subbed in on the Select Committee towards the end of its process, were largely supportive of the bill. They made a small number of points proposing changes. For the most part, those proposed changes were ones that were unnecessary because the matters raised were already dealt with by law elsewhere, or where a deliberate policy choice was being made, and appropriately in my view, not to take that particular course. So for example, this minor amendment to the Crimes Act rather than specific legislation on match fixing. For example, Sir, the approach to taking a rather narrow focus on particular aspects of match fixing rather than addressing all of the possible aspects. Those were appropriate choices. Two further points that I want to make. First of all, there is one change that the Select Committee has recommended, and the Minister, Jonathan Coleman, whom I join with others in congratulating on his appointment to that portfolio, around removal of a qualification that was in the original first draft of the bill that could have been used as a defence by those who actually were guilty of match fixing. And we certainly support that change to the bill. The other point that I want to place on record is that the view of the Select Committee, and I take it that it will be the view of this Parliament, and therefore I place it into Hansard, is that the intention of this bill is that all of those who are associated with the chain of procurement of match fixing or spot fixing should be captured by the wording of this bill. Mr. Speaker, that's important to state because the Legislation Advisory Council did raise a doubt as to whether the originator of the procurement of match or spot fixing would be caught by this bill. The advice that the Select Committee received from prosecuting authorities and from Sport New Zealand and our own analysis was that the bill would be adequate to capture that originator, who probably is the most culpable of all of those in the chain. But Sir, for the avoidance of doubt, I want to place that on record in Hansard, Sir. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to the Cricket World Cup at the beginning of next year, and looking forward in particular to a Cricket World Cup just that little bit more confident that what I will be seeing is a genuine competition in which the Black Caps do as well as they possibly can. Thank you, Sir.